It began in my late 20s, but the seeds were sown much earlier, in a childhood marked by violence and fear. My father was a brutal man, a tyrant in our home. He ruled with an iron fist, and his rage was unpredictable. My mother and I were his frequent targets. Every beating, every angry outburst carved away at my humanity, leaving behind a void filled with hatred and powerlessness. I spent my childhood cowering, dreaming of the day I could escape his control. When I was 16, my mother took her own life. She couldn't bear the abuse any longer. Her death shattered me. My father's violence escalated, and I began to fantasize about turning the tables, to feel powerful. I escaped my father when I was 18, fleeing to my mother's brother. One night, after a particularly stressful day at work, I found myself in a seedy part of town. I had started drinking heavily, trying to drown out the memories, but the alcohol only fueled my anger. I encountered a homeless man, an easy target, and something inside me snapped. The need to exert power, to feel in control, overwhelmed me. I attacked him with a ferocity that surprised even me. The act of killing was both horrifying and exhilarating. For the first time, I felt a sense of power, a release from the anger and fear that had plagued me for so long. But it was a fleeting relief, and soon the darkness returned, stronger than before. That was the first. Over the next 7 years, I killed 15 more people. My victims were always men who reminded me of my father, abusive, violent, the kind of men who took pleasure in exerting power over others. I chose my victims impulsively, striking when the rage inside me became too much to bear. I didn't plan. I didn't stalk. I simply waited for the right moment, for someone to trigger that dark urge. I didn't get caught for so long because my killings were random, impulsive. There was no pattern for the police to follow, no connections between me and my victims. I avoided places with cameras, and I left no clues. The media dubbed me the Phantom, a shadowy figure who struck without warning and vanished without a trace. My ability to evade capture also stemmed from my normal life. By day, I was an unremarkable office worker, blending seamlessly into society. I had no criminal record, no suspicious behavior that would draw attention. I was invisible, just another face in the crowd. The beginning of the end came when I encountered Mark, a middle-aged man who ran a local shelter. He seemed kind and caring, but I saw through his facade. I had heard whispers of his abusive nature towards the people he was supposed to help, and my rage was ignited. One night, in a fit of drunken anger, I followed him and struck when he was alone. But this time, something went wrong. Mark fought back fiercely, and in the struggle, he managed to stab me with a knife he carried. Bleeding and panicked, I fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of blood. The police found Mark barely alive, and he described his attacker in detail. I was arrested at the hospital, where I went to get my wound treated. The evidence was irrefutable. My blood at the scene, Mark's testimony, and the knife that matched my wound. My reign of terror had finally come to an end. Now, as I await my execution, I reflect on the horror I unleashed. I killed 16 men, each one an attempt to fill a void that could never be filled. I didn't stop because I couldn't. The darkness inside me was insatiable, a monster that demanded more and more. I am a monster, and I accept that now.